Oh, hello everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this webinar on sibling rivalry and how we can use the hand-in-hand tools to hopefully get our children to get along a bit more easily. So I did this live yesterday and had technical troubles again, and so I am re-recording this the following day, and one of my friends has very kindly agreed to come and listen to me, so I actually feel like I am talking to somebody. So thank you very much. You know who you are. So I just wanted to start by thanking those people who came yesterday to sort of carve out a time to sort of think about their parenting at a time of year when I know it's really difficult to do that. Everybody's really busy. And to thank you if you've come at a time that's more convenient to you. Thanks for coming to listen. I hope that you'll be able to go away with some things that maybe you didn't know or you're hearing again, and it's a reminder of stuff that you already know. I'm hoping that maybe you'll be able to go away and try some of the things I mention and see if anything shifts for you, your kids and your family. Today I did receive a couple of messages just saying that they had already tried to implement some of the things that they had heard and that it had gone well, it had been helpful, which is really lovely to hear. So I'm always really grateful to get feedback from times when you've tried it and questions from when you've tried it and it didn't work and you don't understand why it didn't work. So feel free to get in touch with questions, queries, or just success stories, because they're good to share too. So I'm going to share a little bit about Hand in Hand and the organisation, a little bit about myself, and then we'll get going. So Hand in Hand Parenting is a non-profit organisation, a charity, based in the States, but we work globally now. And it was set up by our founder, Katy over 30 years ago now. And the tools that we teach now are the culmination of her work, her experimentation, learning from her and others around her. And the 5 tools that we teach now is sort of everything that she has learnt. We are a trauma-informed approach, and science is kind of catching up with what Katy and others discovered along the way. My name is Katy Linsley. I live in Lancaster in the north of England. I live with my 2 boys who are 10 and 7 now, and their dad. And I've been a hand-in-hand instructor since last December, so just over a year now. And I have worked with children for over 20 years now in different guises. At the moment, I'm a childminder, so I look after preschool children while their families are working. But about 4 or 5 years ago, four or 5 years ago, I discovered Hand in Hand and started using some of the tools and found that some of the information that I found out through Hand in Hand was stuff that was quite revolutionary to me, quite counterintuitive. It wasn't anything I'd experienced before, and started using some of the tools with my family and some of the children I worked with, and really saw things begin to shift and transform in our family. And like now, it's my passion really to bring those tools and the information to families who are perhaps finding things tricky and they're not knowing why. Sibling rivalry wasn't the main reason that I came to Hand in Hand, but having learnt some of the tools, I realised that it was one of the things that was really difficult for us. Having 2 children all of a sudden made life that much harder. And so yesterday I asked everybody who was on the call what kind of things they were experiencing, what kind of things they were seeing between their siblings, the children, that had led them to come to the call. And so sibling rivalry is something as parents we really notice when it is loud. So there was lots of bickering, snatching, fighting, sort of hissing and shouting and making horrible noises at one another. And the other side of sibling rivalry is perhaps the less dramatic side of it, where actually siblings have no real interest in each other. they're kind of dismissive of one another, they kind of ignore one another, they kind of live in very separate lives, and they don't really come in together, and they don't really connect. And so both ends of those spectrums are the things that as parents we really don't want. One of them is loud, and if I'm honest, the sibling rivalry that I've had in my family, sort of still sometimes, but very much before I used the tools, the thing that really got to me was my response to my children's arguing, fussing, whining, bickering, fighting. It was the fact that when they started really arguing, I couldn't be heard. I couldn't get in. So I would be sort of saying, oh no, what, you know, what this and da 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 da, and I was giving so much energy trying to fix the situation, but equally just being ignored, like I was invisible, which was triggering me. And actually, listening partnerships, which I don't have time to go into today, is one of the things that has really helped me with my sibling rivalry issues at home. Because now when my children are fighting or having an issue, I'm able to kind of come to that situation slightly lighter, slightly less of my own baggage about the times when I've been powerless to change a situation, the times when I haven't been heard or I haven't been listened to. Those things aren't coming up for me so much, so I'm much more able to deal with what's going on in front of me, thinking well, thinking creatively, and possibly even playfully around how I can shift the children out of the tension that they're feeling. So at the heart of sibling rivalry, and at the heart of children's emotions in general, and adults' emotions in general, is our biological need to feel connected to other humans. So when our children are first born, their brain isn't very well developed, but their emotional social hub of their brain is fully developed, even in utero. And so that's where they're storing all of their memories and all of their long-term stuff, all of their emotional and social development goes on in that part of the brain, which is already there. And so as soon as they're born, they are searching for other brains that are connected to theirs. And if they don't feel that connection, that is an emotional emergency for them, and they need to feel that connection in order to feel safe, to feel well, and then to think clearly and cooperate and think rationally and be able to reason as they grow older. And so sibling rivalry is really when those children feel disconnected. They don't feel connected to any of the adults around them, and that makes their thinking go haywire. So they become unreasonable. They forget that they actually like their sibling and that they get on with their sibling. They forget how to behave. And so you see this irrational behavior. I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you. Let's see if this works by the magic. There we go. There we go. So when the child feels that connection break, they get hurt and their thinking gets broken, and then the children can't think rationally, and that's when you start to see the irrational behavior, them snatching things, them kicking out at their brother and sister, them saying mean things. If they're a bit older, they'll be mean and they'll try to put their sibling down. And sorry, just need to, there we go. And what we do in hand is we use one of the tools which we call stay listening, but essentially it is the power of listening. And so when we spot that one of our children or both of them are off track, they're behaving irrationally, we know, okay, they're signaling to us that they don't feel good and they don't feel connected to us. So what I need to do is I then need to connect, and I need to show my caring, and I need to listen to whatever has come up for your child, for our children. And so our children will show us that they're off track, and hopefully we will have the time, space, and the mental capacity to be able to know that they need us to connect, and then we come in and connect with our children. And our children have it's an instinctive, natural way of healing from those hurts of feeling disconnected. And those ways of healing are crying, laughing, trembling, sweating, and yawning. You'll find that sometimes when a child has had a really big cry, they end by just doing enormous yawns, and that's like the end tensions coming out of their body. But so crying is a way of healing from quite big hurts, fears and things like that. Trembling is the release of fear. Sweating is also the release of fear. But laughter is a way of us releasing perhaps lighter fears and anxieties and troubles and tensions, the lighter stuff. Sometimes you can start with laughter and then it turns into crying. Sometimes they can cry and then it ends with laughter, and that's, that gets rid of it. So when we listen to our children, we can let them cry. We can partner with them whilst they are crying and trembling and perhaps tantruming and shouting and struggling. But we partner with them while they're feeling those harder things to feel. We partner with them. And then if we can listen to the end, our children can begin to think again. They can begin to feel connected to us again. I'm just going to take this off. I can do a bit more. So when I was preparing for this talk the last few weeks, I have been concentrating on upping my connection with my children. And I feel like as I've been writing this sibling rivalry talk, my children have really been showing me how I can use the tools with their sibling rivalry. I think that with the approach to Christmas, there's a lot going on. School is difficult with the pandemic, and there's other anxieties and uncertainties going on. And so they have really been showing those hurts with their siblings. They've been using their siblings as a way of signaling me, I don't feel good, I'm not really happy. And so I kind of expect it coming up to Christmas anyway. So I have been trying to up my connection with my children. But on Sunday, my eldest child, who is 10, really helped me practice my stay listening skills. So we were playing a game, and that game had been going really well. We'd done a lot of laughing, and we'd all been getting on really well, lots of cooperation. It was not always the way that our board games go. But we finished the game, and the children were going to move into the kitchen. Their dad was in there, they were going to get some lunch, and I nipped off to go to the loo or something like that. And I could hear this furore kicking off downstairs in the kitchen. So when I came down, my son had moved through to the dining room, my eldest son, and I knew that because of what I could hear, I knew that it had been a problem between him and his little brother. And so I went in and I kind of didn't even ask any questions. I knew he was upset, and I just wanted to be with him while he was upset and just listen to anything he wanted to tell me. And actually it became quite clear that really the crux of the matter was that his brother had said to him, I only want you to have half a packet of crisps. We will share this packet between us. We'll have half each. That will leave 2 packets of crisps for us to have with our packed lunch next week. Crisps in their packed lunch is a treat. It's not something they normally have. And so there was this, a discussion around this. And my eldest son said, no, I want to have a full packet of crisps. And so as I'm listening to this, he's crying a little bit, but mostly just angry. In the middle of what he's telling me, he's saying to me, I'm not even sure I'm very hungry anyway. I don't think that I am very hungry, and I don't really want to eat a whole packet of crisps. And so I'm listening to this thinking, okay, well, in that case, then you're almost blatantly telling me the crisps are not the issue here. There is more going on. And actually, as I didn't question him, and I wasn't trying to be logical, and I wasn't asking him for facts and figures or anything like that, he basically then was able to come and say to me, I don't want him telling me what to do. I don't want him telling me I can only have half a packet of crisps. I want a full packet. I want to be able to have that. And I think that his dad had kind of said, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. And so there was an even bigger thing of, I feel like I'm being ganged up against here. Dad and my little brother are telling me what to do, and I don't want to be told what to do. I happen to know that at school he is also having these feelings. So I kind of very quickly went, right, it's not really to do with the crisps, it's to do with having power over me all the time, not having my own say around things, having people I feel that are ganging up against me, and all of these things. So I just let him talk and talk. And when he is having a go at his brother, I'm not counteracting that. I'm not saying, oh no, but your brother is, he's very sensible, and I'm not doing any of that. I'm just letting him tell me. His brother wasn't in the room, so that was helpful. I didn't have to protect the little brother about what the big brother was saying. I was just allowed to let him talk and know that he really loves his little brother. And if he was feeling good, he would be able to remember that. So I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about their relationship long term in the moment of when my son is feeling off track. Anyway, that went on for a few minutes, seemed to calm down. So I said, okay, you ready for some lunch? We went through, at which point he was reminded that, no, he is only going to have half a packet of crisps. We are going to save the 2 packets. At which point he exploded. He ran up the stairs. He was growling and roaring and stamping his feet and crying and shouting. And previously to learning about how children's emotions work, I definitely would have been like, you cannot stamp upstairs, the shouting is not acceptable. You need to talk to me nicely and explain yourself properly. Whereas now I know that actually those growling and those noises are his emotional brain healing and getting rid of the stuff that is blocking him thinking well. So I let him go. I followed him slowly because I didn't want him to be alone with those feelings. So I followed him. And when I got to his bedroom, he was crying at this point. And I sat down with him and I, just put my hand on him. What I'm going for there is connection. So I would offer him my eye contact. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking away, but I was warmly looking at him if he was to turn around and look at me. I want to be sort of close to him physically. I want to, with the tone of my voice and my touch, show him that I'm with him, that I'm calm, that I'm thinking well, I'm grounding him. Because when a child is in that state of feeling their emotions deeply, as children do, they can't really hear us. They can't really make sense of logic and reasoning. So there's no point in speaking great long sentences, but they can hear tone of voice. So I was just saying, I'm here, I'm sorry. And at one point he said to me, go away. It was overwhelming having that much love and delight being, fostered upon him. And so I did take a step back, but I didn't leave. If he'd have said it again, I may have taken a step back further. If he'd have told me to get out of the room, I may have temporarily come outside the room and just waited, particularly with older children. It is a bit more of a dance when you are listening to their emotions. But as it was, I sort of sensed they would be okay if I just backed off a little bit. So I did for a minute or so, and he was crying. And when he calmed down crying a little bit, I did sit on the side of his bed again, and he was okay with that. He didn't tell me to go away. Just put my hand on his back. And then he told me everything that he disliked about his brother and how he was always mean to him, and he was, always this, that, and the other. And in our household, we try to not use phrases like always and never because they're not very helpful. However, I wasn't about to, use this moment as a moment of teaching. He's not thinking. So I'm letting that go. Every now and again, I'm just adding a gentle, your brother can be kind. I'm just reminding him in those moments that, his brother is good. I'm holding on to the fact that they're both good. I'm just reminding him he's good. If when I had said, your brother can be kind, if he'd have said, no, he can't, he can never be kind, he's always horrible, I would have just let that go. I wouldn't have started an argument about it. I just every now and again would have said, he can be generous, he can be kind, and just a bit like that. And then he kind of slowed down his crying, but I could see that and sense that he still wasn't feeling light, and it hadn't really evaporated off of him. With toddlers, it can be like that. They can just cry, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, I feel much better now, and then they can toddle off. What I found as my boys have got older, that transition from feeling hard, intense feelings to sort of thinking well again and thinking lightly again and calmly again does take a little bit longer. And what I found is that sometimes just by laying with my boys or giving them a cuddle, or that can help. And so I just laid with him for a few minutes, and I said, are you ready to come downstairs? And I'm like, no, not yet. Okay, we can stay some more. And and then I think I asked him again, and he's like, no, actually, yeah. And so when we came downstairs, his little brother was actually at the bottom of the stairs, and his little brother said, I'm really sorry, Joe. And he was like, yeah, it's okay. And then quite miraculously, and this does happen sometimes, if we're able to listen to our children all the way through, they kind of do something that surprises us, almost like they really have shifted something that has been stopping them from behaving in another way. We had a bowl of couscous on the table that me and his dad really liked, but the children are always like, it's horrible, I'm not eating it. And as me and he were eating our lunch, he was like, actually, could I try some of that? At which point I tried not to fall off of my chair and just very casually said, yeah, sure, it's fine, just take what you want. And he ate it, and I don't think he's going to be eating couscous, big bowlfuls of it or anything like that, but he had a few mouthfuls and he was like, yeah, it's okay. And that won't always happen at the end of a stay listen. And the other thing to mention about stay listening is that on this particular occasion, I had Dad downstairs as well looking after his sibling. It was a Sunday afternoon. There was really no rush. We didn't have anything to do because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I did feel very comfortable in just letting him go. He wasn't triggering me in any way with what he was saying or how he was behaving. The stay listens can be very difficult for parents, particularly if you're not used to doing it. So if you're going to try listening to your child for the first time, it can be very triggering for us. Hearing children cry, hearing children angry, hearing children, speak ill of other family members or of yourself can be really triggering. And sometimes it's better to think, how am I feeling here? Am I okay to listen to this? Or am I about to lose my good thinking around the situation? And it's really important to know and to give yourself permission to listen as long as you feel that you can. And then to give yourself permission to say, I can't listen anymore to this, so I'm going to just nip it in the bud. There are days when I say, okay, sweetheart, thank you for sharing that. You've done some really lovely work. I will literally say that to my children. They don't really understand what I'm saying at that point because they're still in the middle of their big feelings, but I'll say, thank you, that was really lovely. Thank you for telling me all of that stuff. I really want to listen to you again, but I can't listen to you now. And sometimes when I was first listening to my children, it would be, I'm just going to step out and just going to go to the bathroom for a minute, just to give myself a little bit of breathing time myself to make sure that I'm thinking well again. Sometimes it might be, I've really got to get you to school and I can't listen anymore, but I will listen again another time, but we need to go now. Or it might be, okay, let's have something to eat because let's just distract you. Let's just have a snack. Let's watch some telly. Let's, do something else. And that's okay. What's helpful for me to know was that if my child had something that they were working on, some hurt that was making them go off track and they were showing me and crying a lot, if I listened to them for 2 minutes, and that was all I could handle listening to them for, that 2 minute of healing had been done and I didn't need to listen to those 2 minutes again. And even if it took another 20, 30 minutes of listening, an hour, depending on what it is that your child is working on when they are trying to heal from something potentially a big deal for them, you don't have to listen to it all in one go. It can be helpful to listen to it all in one go because then it's finished and you don't have to have that off-track behavior anymore. But it's okay to listen to it in 5-minute chunks if that's all you can handle. And I think that that's really important to hear. When you first start listening to your children in this way, not only is it very different for you because you probably weren't listened to like that as children. Many of us weren't. Our parents certainly weren't, and it goes back. But also our children will start to go, "Oh, are you going to listen? can I get rid of this as well, please? And this was really horrible. Can I get rid of this? And, we talk about having like an emotional backpack where they have been storing all these small and big hurts that they haven't been able to express and heal from. When you start saying, yes, I'll listen to them, sometimes they go, oh, wow, okay, let's get rid of all of this stuff then. And I remember when I first started listening to my children, my husband was really like, oh my goodness, there is so much crying in this house. And so you can need sometimes to go, I can't listen to any more crying, or I can't listen to any more anger, or I can't listen to, my child saying that my other child is horrible and, I wish that they went back, and why did you bring this new baby? And, that can be hard to listen to. So in the vein of listening to our children when they are off track, and sort of when they're off track, coming in, connecting with them so that they can start this healing process and then stay listening to that healing process. In that vein, siblings, when they are arguing, you're doing a kind of stay listening with that. So in our house, TV is often a sticking point, and we've had many arguments about TV, who gets to choose which program they're going to watch, and whether that program was 3 minutes longer than this program, and they've taken it in turns, but actually you chose this one, no, you chose it, I suggested it, but you said yes, so that was your choice. And oh my goodness, just like whew. So now, and my children did this on Sunday morning before Joe's big stay listen. So my children were doing this. They were talking about what they wanted to watch on telly. My eldest said he would like to watch Mr. Bean again, which my youngest said had been what they'd watched the day before. He didn't want to watch that again. I get the impression they'd watched all of the Mr. Beans the day before, and he didn't want to watch them again. It seemed fairly rational to me, but not to my son. He's already shown me at this point that he's getting some off-track behaviour. Ordinarily, before I learned about the tools, I felt like it was my job to fix the argument. That was the parent's role, was to go in and to be the jury and to work out what had gone on and how long things were, and all of those details, and then to be the judge, to rule on this argument and make a case and say, right, okay, well, I think that you are in the right and that your decision is good, or I'm going to vote in favor of you, which isn't helpful. It's such a lot of energy for you as the parent to be kind of like, okay, right, well, what happened, and what happened first, and who started it, and who was in the wrong and who was in the right. That's a lot of energy for us. But then also you have to then say, okay, well, I agree with you or you. I mean, if you've got 3 or 4 children, who are you going to go with? And then you're sort of saying, well, I'm going to side with this child. And immediately you're then putting yourself against the other child, which it just kind of makes sense that is going to add to the hurts that are going in, particularly against their sibling, who they feel like you sided with, you've agreed with, they've beaten you. Heaven forfend if the sibling actually kind of goes, no, I got it and you didn't, So having learned about stay listening, when my kids were talking about the TV situation the other day, I sort of said, oh, okay, so what is it that you wanted, Joe? And he's, Mr. Bean. And so I may almost translate for the other sibling, if perhaps there's some like, you're so stupid, you said we could, if there's any name calling or anything like that, I may, okay, we don't call names. And I'll say, okay, so they're suggesting Mr. Bean. What do you think about that? I don't want it. And then I may help with saying, okay, well, do you have any ideas of what you would like to watch instead? And on this occasion, the younger brother was sort of suggesting 2 or 3 other programs, which the elder one was just completely dismissing. No, don't want anything else. Don't want just Mr. Bean. And so I was kind of like, okay, Joe, I think, can you think of something else then that something else you might like to watch? And eventually he kind of said, well, oh, yeah, okay, Deadly 60. And I said, Jim, what do you think about Deadly 60? And Jim was like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we could do that. And then as I was leaving, they were trying to find Deadly 60. And one of them, can't even remember which one, of them was like, well, actually, should we watch that instead? And I was like, yeah, let's watch that instead. And actually, they chose something completely different. But they found a solution that worked for them. I could have gone through every TV program I have ever heard of, and I wouldn't have come up with the one that they finally agreed on. You know, handing them back. Well, what I'm wondering, you know, can you think of something that would feel fair? You know, sometimes I'll be saying to them, well, you tell me, what do you think? And they'll say, well, how about if we watched one bean and then I got to choose one? And as long as they both agree, job's a good one. And I haven't quite given out so much of my own energy. I'm not saying it's not irritating or, you know, a bit stressful. And sometimes it does take slightly longer because I may have to listen to some stuff that is coming up. But I feel like that's time well spent, because I've moved away, and actually moving away, they're getting on well. I can hear them laughing and giggling and being light with one another. And they haven't kind of ruptured their friendship and their connection. And actually, they've kind of solved it together-ish with a bit of mediation, but they've solved it together, and actually they feel good about each other again. So actually, the extra time felt very worthwhile with that situation. So that is stay listening, and then kind of listening to arguments rather than fixing whatever is going wrong for your child, whether it be the crying, and you'll stay listening. So instead of fixing the crying, I'm listening to it. Instead of fixing the argument, I'm kind of listening and holding a space for them to kind of listen to one another as much as possible. One of the tools that I wanted to introduce as a way of kind of building connection between you as a parent and each child is special time. Special time is the tool that we often suggest that parents try first. And the reason that we suggest it first is A, it's quite easy to implement straight away. But also it is the proactive tool to build connection between you and your child. And if siblings are arguing or doing anything that they do with sibling rivalry, knowing that it is their feelings of disconnection or small or big hurts that have got in the way of being able to feel your connection. Even if you offer connection, sometimes they can't feel it because of the hurts that are almost blocking the wavelengths between you wanting to connect and their brain being able to accept that connection. So special time is a good place to start to begin to build that connection up with your children. And I'm going to see if I can share a screen with you again. Okay, let's try that one. Okay. So special time, quite simply, is a devoted amount of time that you spend one-on-one with your child. So if you've got siblings, it would be a time that you would spend one-on-one with each child. And the idea is that in that time, as the parent, you get to choose when the special time will take place, and you will get to choose how long that special time is. That's your power. When and for how long. And then you say to your child, I have got 4 minutes and I want to give you special time. You can name it whatever you like. Sometimes I used to call it, you know, mummy and me time, or you're the boss time. Now we call it special time just for ease. But I've got 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 7 minutes. I go maximum sort of 15 minutes is about the most that I can do, because I'm going to do 15 minutes for one child and 15 minutes for another child. And more than that, I haven't really got the reserves for very often. But when I first started special time, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. So I'd say to them, I've got 7 minutes of special time. And that is time when you get to choose what we do. It's going to be just me and you get to choose anything you like. And so what you're really doing is you're giving them the power. you're saying this is how long you've got, and you're in charge for that amount of time. And this is so unusual for children, because for so much of their lives, they are really not in control of where they are, when they are, what they wear, what they eat. But in these 7 minutes, they have control. And then in those 7 minutes, the idea is that you follow their lead entirely. You obviously have to keep them safe. So if they want to do something that's a bit risky and a bit unsafe, as much as possible, you're trying to find a way of doing that safely. So my children always want to leap on and off beds, pull me on and off beds, wrestle, things like that. So we have old camping mattresses that we put around my double bed. And that means that if any of us fall off the bed or are pulled or pushed off the bed, we're not likely to hurt ourselves. And, you know, say my child wants to throw stuff. I will work out, okay, where can we throw this stuff where it's going to be safe, nothing that I really care about is going to get broken. You know, I might say to them, okay, well, could we please do that outside? Or, okay, well, let's throw stuff. Let's find some things that I'm happy for you to throw. Or, okay, I'm a bit worried about these items up here. I'm just going to move them out of the way. So as much as possible, I'm trying to say yes as much as possible to them. And then in those 7 minutes, I am doing nothing but delighting in my child. Nothing but just thinking how wonderful my child is, even if he's making farting noises over and over and over again. I am delighting in my child and their imagination on how they can make more farting noises and how they can do different farting noises. And I am genuinely trying to delight in them, as hard as that may be. And it has to be said that once your child really gets a grasp of what special time is and what they can do with it, they often will go for the things that as parents we might say no to ordinarily. My two do choose on a fairly regular basis that I play video games with them, because they're not really allowed to play video games as and when they want to. So they'll often use that time. One time I remember, I have a real, or I used to, not anymore, I used to have a real thing about being underneath the bed, because when I was little, I would go underneath the bed, and if my brother or sister would come after me and there would be a wall, me and my brother and sister, I would get a little bit claustrophobic. And so my children both picked up on this. I think we must have been doing something and they wanted me to go underneath the bed, and I was like, oh, I'm not really very comfortable with this. We were under the bed for special time for weeks. And they were very lovely about it. Both of them did it separately, because that's the key. It has to be one child at a time. But they were like, it's okay, Mummy, you're with me. And actually, it was quite interesting. They got to be the one who was confident, that wasn't anxious, that was more sure of themselves. And I, you know, and in the end, I did kind of ramp that up a little bit so that they could really take care of me. And I don't have a problem being under a bed anymore, because they've got that out. So let me see if I can move this down. So one child at a time is kind of important. It's particularly when you're looking at having sibling rivalry. A lot of that will come from the fact that they don't really, or they might not, get you all to themselves. And certainly, you know, we lead busy lives. So even if we have only got one child with us, we might be, you know, checking our emails, making a phone call to our mothers or fathers to check in with them. And, you know, there is a lot of cooking dinner, putting the washing on, you know, doing paid work. You know, we've all been working from home whilst our children sometimes have been off school. So even if they're the only one with you, they haven't got this undivided, connected, delightful time. And so if you can, doing it separately is really, really important. So you set a timer, you tell them how long you've got, but you set the timer so that they know until this timer goes off, it's their time. And so there's no like, oh yeah, I've got 5 minutes. And then, you know, it's like, oh, do you know what? I really can't play with small world stuff anymore. I'm just going to pretend the 5 minutes is up. You know, you can't do that. And equally, they can't go, oh, we'll just play for a bit more, and I'll just play for a bit more, and I'll just play for a bit more. The timer goes off, and they know that that's finished. Now, big feelings come up sometimes, particularly because special time is connection time. And when we connect with our children, that builds up the emotional safety for them. And when children sense that there is emotional safety, they begin, not consciously in any way, but their emotional brain senses the safety and says, brilliant, I can get rid of some of the stuff that's been bothering me, some of the stuff that's been meaning I can't think well, and I'm not, thoroughly enjoying my life because there are these things getting in the way of me really engaging with life and thriving and cooperating and connecting with others. I can get rid of this stuff. And special time builds that safety. But what it does mean is that sometimes when the timer goes off, they go, brilliant, I am now going to use this as a way of saying, oh, this is awful, this is horrible, you never spend any time with me, that wasn't 5 minutes, there must be something wrong with the clock. They're beginning the process of healing. And you can tell that because it's not really rational. Even if you think, oh, well, I haven't really spent much time with them. They're just using that as a way of getting rid of the frustrations they haven't been able to be with you for very long. So it's a really good idea if you've only got 7 minutes and you need to start the dinner, you only offer them 4, so that you've still got 3 minutes to listen with them and be with them and partner with them whilst it is hard for them. So when the special time ends, it can be useful to expect there to be some feelings that come up afterwards, but you can reassure them that you've really enjoyed the time with them, that we will do it again. I often will say to the kids, well, we could do this again on Friday. I don't do paid work on Friday, so I know I'm going to have a good chunk of time. We can do this again on Friday. Sometimes if I'm not sure I will have time, I will just say, this was really nice, shall we do special time again? Let's think about when we can do it again, and we'll plan another time. So I'm not committing myself. Sometimes it's good to commit. Sometimes it's good to know I can't really commit at the moment. What is also useful to know when you first start trying special time is they may not object when the timer goes off, but you may find 5, 10, an hour later, they will find something else to hook their feelings onto, something small that they have a big upset around. And you can know that's the safety of special time. They've used the safety of special time, and now they're ready to get rid of some of their emotions. A couple of the questions that came up yesterday around special time was this whole idea of one child at a time. See if I can come back. And sorry, there is no real easy answer to this. If you have more than one child with you at home and you are on your own, doing special time can be tricky, because the minute you offer special time and you say to one of them, I'm going to give myself to you and I'm going to give you some special time, all the other children will want it. I mean, it is like gold to them. Even if the other children are in the other part of the house, it's almost like they sense that the parent is giving special time and they will kind of gravitate down to you. Some of the things that I have tried, my children are quite happy to have quite a long bath or a long shower, and they like to play in the bath. And so I would say to them, okay, I want you to go and have a play in the bath. My children were quite old. That wasn't a dangerous thing to do. I'm going to go and give your brother some special time. And then they would swap over. We often would use the screen for the same thing. You can have an episode of this while I go and do special time, and then you can swap over. Patty Whipfler, she quite famously, when she first started doing special time, was a single parent, and so did have that difficulty of, well, the other child wasn't happy to leave them alone while she was doing special time with another child. So she actually invited a mutual friend, a child that both of her children got on with well and could play with well. And so it was a really regular event She would have them around a couple of times a week, and she would do special time with one of her children while the friend and her other child would play. Then she would have special time with her other child, and the first child would go and play with a friend. And then when she'd done special time with both of her boys, they were kind of connected well enough that they could actually get on and play well together on their own, and she would give special time to their friend. And so that she worked it in that way. A mum that I worked with recently, even though there was both mum and dad in the house, either dad wasn't really happy with doing special time or dad was often out of the house to work, mum actually got their babysitter to come during the day. And she would just come for the hour, and one child would play with the babysitter while mum was doing some special time, and then they would swap over. One parent yesterday asked about like having a newborn baby and then 2 children. And got to be honest, it can be really tricky, particularly early on, before the children really understand it. My children, most of the time, once I'd done it for a little bit, were kind of, okay, yes, I know I'm going to get my turn. And I would always do it one immediately after the other. If I left any kind of gap, that didn't work. But they could hold off enough if they knew it's just 10 minutes and then I'm going to get my turn. This weekend, when we were doing special time, there was quite a long discussion about who was going to go first. And one brother particularly needed it, and the other brother could really feel it and was like, I think I can probably wait, you know. And so you can negotiate. Sometimes the brothers will say, well, I'll go first today and then you can go first tomorrow. And I'm like, great, that's fine. If you've got a newborn baby, if they nap, great. If they don't nap or they nap on you, although it's not massively ideal, there's no huge issue with you trying and seeing what it's like if you're holding the baby and doing some special time. Pillow fights and wrestling aren't going to work if you've got a newborn baby with you. But there are other things. So you could try as much as possible to follow their lead whilst having a newborn baby. I have heard of an instructor say about when they first started off and they had quite young children, they would do like 1 minute of special time with one child, with the other child still sat there, but they were sort of trying to concentrate really fully for 1 minute on this child, and then 1 minute on this child, and then 1 minute on this child, and then 1 minute on this child, so that the children really got, oh, okay, I'm going to get it too. Oh, I'm going to get it too. Just so that, well, that was what worked. That instructor experimented, tried to work out what was going to work for their family, and that's what they did for a time, until the children were kind of like, oh, okay. And children do seem to, after a while, get it. And actually, sometimes trying things that you think are never going to work can sometimes work. And with all the tools, they all work differently for different families and for different times. And it really is worth experimenting and then noticing. I'll try it like this. That didn't work. I could try it like this. That did work. Sometimes I will try something one day and it works beautifully. And I think, brilliant, I'll do that every single time. And the next day I'll try it and it doesn't work. And vice versa. One day I might try something, it doesn't work, but something will tell me if I try it again, and it will do that day. So it is worth experimenting. And sometimes if we feel like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get this to work? Sometimes asking a trusted friend to just listen to us and not offer any advice, but just listen to us whilst we get off our chest how frustrating it is to try and do special time with 4 children who won't leave you alone and da 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 da. If you're allowed to get rid of that first layer of frustration and anger, and nobody ever gave me special time, and you know, I'm trying to offer them something really lovely, and why won't they take it? And you know, I'm just trying to be nice and I'm trying to make things better, and they're not, you know, responding, and blah blah blah. If you've got an opportunity to get that off your chest and out of your system, sometimes we can think better, and we can think, oh, actually though, 2 of them have got football on that day, so perhaps I could do 2, and perhaps 2 would be easier than 4. And sometimes we come up with ideas that we never thought of before, because we were so clouded with the feelings around what is going on for us. So that is stay listening and special time. I wanted to share a little bit around how I now deal with aggression between siblings. Again, this is something that is quite different now that I have some of this knowledge and now that I use the tools on a more regular basis. So now I understand what's going on for our children when they act out, or when they're not thinking well, when they're not being reasonable. I now know that aggression, and particularly aggression between siblings, but aggression is a sign that your child is not feeling well, not feeling good, feeling off track. And often it comes from a place of anxiety and fear. You know, my youngest child took his anxieties in a really different way from my eldest child. My eldest child just showed being nervous and shy and anxious around situations, whereas my younger child actually fought more and was more aggressive. The root of it still was anxiety, disconnection from me, but his way of showing me was much more physical, much more aggressive, and still is. That is his way of showing me he's not feeling good, is when he starts lashing out at his brother very quickly, sort of unprovoked, just kind of like, ah, and he sort of dives. So my role when the children are aggressive with each other is very much to be the safety manager. So I know my children. Hand in hand is the real underpinning of hand in hand is that as parents we are the experts in our children, and that we know our children. And I'm the expert on my children. I can tell from the tone of voice and things like that when things are not going well for the two of them. And so whenever I can, I will make sure that I'm close enough that I can get in before either of them physically hurts the other one. And sometimes that means that I literally have to get in between them to stop a flying foot or a hand or something like that. Sometimes I won't get there in time and one of them will be hurt by the other. Previously, I may have said the person who'd actually thrown the punch or the kick, sent them away, told them off. When I really wasn't thinking well, I would have been like, how many times do I have to tell you? It's not okay to hurt each other. I mean, this really comes up for parents when it is an older sibling hurting a younger sibling, a really young child, and their toddler older brother or sister comes in and, pinches them or hits them or, does something that we perceive as being very mean. It can really trigger our feelings. As much as possible now, when I get into that situation, I just hold that both of them are good. Both of them are, the one who is throwing the punch is not feeling good. Because if they were, they would have been able to use words and say what was wrong, say what was bothering them. The fact that they haven't been able to use their words tells me they're not working in their reasoning, judgment part of their brain, and they're working from their emotions. And so I will stop the off-track behaviour and I'll say, I can't let you hurt them. But I may, and this is what's really quite different, is I may apologise to the child who has hit. I may apologise to them for not getting there soon enough, for not spotting that they weren't feeling well. And so I will apologise to the child who's been hurt, check in with them, make sure they're okay. If they're crying, if they're hurt, I will obviously take care of them. But what I'm not doing is, lecturing, telling the other child off. And actually what I may do is I may say to them, I'm really sorry I didn't spot that you weren't doing well. I'm really sorry that I didn't get here in time. And the first few times I did that, I actually think it was the older child had finally lost his temper and lashed out at the younger one. And he absolutely was expecting me to really have a go at him and to be very cross. And And actually, the moment I said, I'm really sorry, I didn't spot that it was getting to this situation. I'm really sorry, I should have got here quicker so that I could have stopped that from happening. He immediately burst into tears, because when children hurt each other, or you as a parent, they don't want to. And if they get to that stage, it feels really uncomfortable for them. They have felt completely out of control, and it feels scary to be that out of control. And so when we then add a layer of, how could you do that to your little brother? They already feel shame. They may not in that moment. They may still feel very, very angry. However, they will feel shame that they have done that to their mum, their dad, their little brother, their big brother, their big sister. And so by showing understanding that that they are good, and that when they were thinking well, I mean, you don't have to say all of this. It's just very much you're holding their goodness. That can be enough for them to actually begin to process some of the hurts and start to cry, or that actually then can clear away those feelings that were leading to their off-track behavior. And so that's a really big shift that I have put in place with the siblings, is that I am absolutely getting there when I see that they're about to get physical, and I am not blaming one side or the other, and I am perhaps apologizing on both parts. One of the questions that came up yesterday was, do I make them apologize to one another? And actually I don't, as a rule. So it's not you've hit him, you must say sorry. Apart from anything, when they are still in the middle of those big feelings, they don't feel sorry a lot of the time. And so saying it is, there's no point. They're just words. You're not fixing the relationship in any way by forcing them to say sorry. Once things have calmed down a little bit, I may at that point, when I feel like they're beginning to feel when they're beginning to think a little bit better, I may be curious with them and I wonder how we could sort this out so that you two can feel like this argument has been finished. And sometimes, they might say, I could give each other a cuddle, and and I'll say, well, are you ready to give them a cuddle? No, not yet. I'll say, okay, well, maybe later on you might feel like giving each other a cuddle, and then you'll know that things are okay between you. They may apologize. The other day, the youngest did just naturally apologize. Neither me nor his dad would have told him to do that. And that kind of apology is so much more powerful. The older brother was immediately able to accept that because he felt the apology, and that was more powerful. When my children have hurt maybe another child from another family, or in a toddler group, a toddler has whacked another toddler that isn't with me in my group, or even if they are, but I may apologize on their behalf. So I may say to the other injured child, I'm so sorry they did that. That wasn't okay. I'm really sorry I didn't get there first to stop that from happening. And I'll check in with them. Are you okay? Did that hurt? Yeah, it must have hurt. They hit you on the head. And I will say that wasn't okay. That's not okay for them to have hit you like that. I'm really sorry that happened. And that's a genuine apology. I'm apologizing. I'm really sorry that child has been hurt. But I won't necessarily drag my child over when they are not feeling sorry. Sometimes I will say to my children, they're a little bit older now, I will say to them, I really feel like we need to go and make sure that child is okay and that we need to say sorry. You let me know when you feel like that. Sometimes I will say, do you want me to come with you to do that apology? And often that's what my boys have been able to do before they've been able to go and do it by themselves, is that they have needed me with them on their side, not forcing them on the side of the other child, making my child do something, but with my child, partnering with them and saying, he really wants to say sorry. I'm really sorry that he hurt you. I am gonna whiz and tell you one more tool that I have found really powerful in building connection between the siblings and helping them build up their fun, playful relationship. And it's called play listening. I'm going to see if I can share a slide with you again, if I can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to include these. I'm going to include these slides in the email, so that if you don't get a chance to actually look at them now, you will be able to in the email. So play listening, very quickly, is when you shift the power from the parent or the adult to the children. What's great about play listening as opposed to special time is that you can do with as many children as you want. So rather than just being one-on-one, it can be an adult with lots of children. And the main crux of it is that when we as adults give away our power, when we as adults become the weaker ones, the more blundering, the more confused, the more slow-witted, the slower than our children, to children, this is amusing, hilarious, funny, and causes laughter. And so when you're play listening, you are following your children's laughter. Whenever your child or children giggle or laugh at something, you know that you're on the right track, and you can do it again and again and again. It's a bit like when you start playing peekaboo and you say peekaboo and the child giggles. That laughter is getting rid of those light anxieties around not being with you, about separation anxiety. And for example, one day my husband took my boys into a supermarket, and halfway round said, "Oh, are we in Tesco's? I thought we were in Sainsbury's. I'm sure I thought we'd gone into Sainsbury's. How are we in Tesco's?" And I mean, it was quite a genuine befuddlement. But my boys started laughing and laughing really hard, because that's something that they have all the time. They make mistakes all the time. They don't know what's going on so much of the time. So that to have their dad do that meant that they could get rid of that anxiety around not getting things right and doing that. And so my husband clocked that this was funny and then ramped it up, you know, acted even more confused and really befuddled, and walked outside and checked the names. Really, I'm sure we went into Sainsbury's. How did we end up in Tesco's? And blah, blah, blah. That's what you're aiming for. You're aiming for your children to giggle and laugh. One of my favorite ways of doing this is with physical play, because physical play is a great way of starting laughter off. So we do lots of wrestling, lots of pillow fighting, lots of throwing teddy bears at each other. And although I will be matching their strength sometimes if I'm doing a bit of wrestling, I will let them win. And then I will perhaps be sad or angry that I've lost. And that will allow them again to sort of get rid of some more tension and anxiety around it by laughing at the fact that I'm not happily losing either. And with siblings, what you're looking for is, as much of the time, is that they are ganging up against you, that they can be united against you. So I may say something like, you know, you'll never be able to get me off of this bed. And they will have to work together in order to get me off of the bed. And my boys definitely feel that they want to gang up against me or their dad, rather than the parent and one of the siblings gang up against the other sibling. They know that that doesn't feel as good as when it is the parent and they're both beating us. So I will put in the email some good games that you can go to straight away. There'll be things that, you know, you probably have played before, but maybe not realized quite how healing the laughter is around those games. And so I will put those in the email for you. What I'm really conscious of is that I've used my hour, and an hour is a long time when you have children and perhaps you've carved out an hour. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to just take this off if I can. Just to say thank you very much for spending this hour with me. If you have any questions, if anything I haven't explained well enough, please do contact me. At the end of the talk yesterday, I spent 20 minutes just answering individual questions. I hope some of them I've answered during this, but please do feel free to contact me and ask me if there is anything that you want me to go over again. or explain or see if I have any ideas around. Thank you very much. I hope you've been able to have 1 or 2 things that you can take away and try, or 1 or 2 things that you have learned or been reminded of. Thank you for this time. Bye-bye.